The goat wouldn't eat. Cole Rollins stood ankle-deep in straw, a scoop of grain dangling from his weather-worn hand, watching the animal with a wariness that bordered on fear. The goat, a mangy old thing with a crooked horn and suspicious yellow eyes, sniffed once at the feed, then backed away with a grunt. It turned its head toward the hay mound in the back corner of the barn, let out a low bleat and stomped its hoof once. Then again. Cole narrowed his eyes. "Damn fool animal," he muttered. "You'll starve if you keep that up." He stepped forward and sprinkled the grain on the ground like he had the last 3 days. The goat didn't budge. Not an inch. Outside, the wind tore across the plains with that dry, hollow whistle that only Montana could conjure. The sun, long swallowed by heavy clouds, cast a dull iron light across the land. The barn creaked, the old boards groaning in their hinges like they were tired of standing upright. Cole leaned against a post and rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the scar there tug as he tilted his head. The silence settled in again, broken only by the soft chewing of a distant horse and the sighing of wind through chinks in the boards. The goat still stared at the hay. He hadn't named it. June had once. Long time ago. Called it Sheriff of all things. Said it kept order amongst the chickens. She was 10 then, smart-mouthed and bright-eyed, always dragging that goat around by a piece of twine like it was her deputy. Cole swallowed the lump rising in his throat. That goat was the last thing she gave him. The last piece of her that was still real. Everything else was rumor, memory, or pain. He kicked the grain bucket aside and stalked out into the open yard, dust rising around his boots. The ranch spread out before him, weathered fences, a sagging porch, tools rusting in the grass. The place looked dead, like it had forgotten what it was for. He hadn't worked the land in months. Just kept the animals fed and the gates shut. Not much else. As he passed the porch he caught sight of her swing, the one he built her. Still hung from the cottonwood tree, rope frayed, seat tilted. Sometimes it moved on its own when the wind was just right. Sometimes it didn't move at all when it should have. He saddled Dust, his old gelding, and rode into town, hoping for feed advice or maybe a distraction. Or maybe just a bottle. The road stretched long and colorless, dirt blurring into distance. A hawk circled overhead, silent. Gatlin was a town that forgot how to grow. 10 buildings, 2 of them boarded. The sheriff's office, general store, saloon, and a few homes pretending not to be crumbling. The store bell jingled as Cole pushed through the door, drawing the eyes of old man Fletcher, who manned the counter and seemed to know more about everyone than he ought to. "Back again?" Fletcher asked, voice dry as corn husk. "Didn't think the goat needed daily groceries." "Won't eat," Cole replied, brushing dust off his coat. "Stares at the hay like it's hiding something." Fletcher squinted. "Goat's probably smarter than you then. That old barn's always been strange." Cole raised a brow. "Strange how?" Fletcher waved a hand. "Ask the sheriff. Or don't. Folks don't like talking about the Rollins barn." He bought a new grain sack and a bottle of rye, then paused outside the store. Across the street, the sheriff leaned against his post, toothpick hanging loose from his mouth. "Young guy. Too clean for Gatlin." "Sheriff Mallory. You seein' ghosts again, Rollins?" Mallory called across. Cole didn't bother responding. Just climbed back on Dust and turned home. But the sheriff added, quieter now, "You find what you're looking for, you let me know." The ride home was colder than the clouds promised. When he stepped into the barn again, the goat was right where he left it, still staring. Cole knelt beside it, poured the new feed out slow, careful. "Sheriff," he muttered, using the name for the first time in years. "If you know something, now'd be the time." The goat turned its eyes to him, then to the hay. Then back. He followed the stare this time. The hay in the corner was piled strange, lumpier than usual. He moved toward it, dragging the pitchfork behind him. As he started to pull the hay aside, a memory seized him. June's voice, giggling, singing some nonsense tune about a lost cowboy and a crooked snake. She used to build forts in this barn, tunnels through the bales, hiding like it was a castle. The memory cut so sharp it nearly stopped his hands. He gritted his teeth and stabbed the fork in deep. Hay scattered. Dust flew. Something clanked underneath. Cole paused. He cleared more away, his hands trembling now, moving without thought. There, hidden beneath a shallow layer of straw, was a rusted square of iron. A trapdoor. The air shifted. The goat backed away with a whimper. Cole stared. A trapdoor in his own barn, and he never knew it. Never felt it under his boots. It sat flush with the floorboards, iron ring half buried in years of dust. He reached for it slowly, hand hovering. Then he stood, wiped sweat from his brow, and grabbed a lantern from the post. He didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, he stumbled back to the house, bottle under his arm, blood pounding in his ears. He didn't sleep that night. Sat in his kitchen, staring at the flame of the lamp, imagining what could be down there. Tools? Old family secrets? Maybe nothing. Or maybe her. He didn't cry. Couldn't. The grief had hardened years ago, calcified into something ugly. But his hands shook when he lit a second lamp and stared out the window toward the barn. At dawn he returned. The trapdoor hadn't moved. The goat lay nearby, its head on its hooves, eyes wide open. Watching. Cole pulled on the iron ring. It resisted. Then gave with a groan so loud it echoed through the empty barn. Dust poured out like smoke. The darkness beneath was complete. He held up the lantern. A wooden ladder descended into the void. He didn't go down. Not yet. He sat in the dirt beside the opening, heart hammering like a freight train. The smell rising from below was strange, dry and old, like paper and metal and rot. He reached for the edge of the hole, then pulled his hand back. Stared into that nothingness like it might blink. The goat nudged his arm. He jumped, cursing. "Damn you," he hissed. But he didn't mean it. The lantern flickered. Cole looked down again, then back at the door. Then he closed it, slow and silent, until the iron groaned shut. He stood. He needed answers. Not just from the hole, but from people. Maybe someone knew. Maybe someone always had. He left the barn, this time with purpose in his stride. The trapdoor had teeth. Whatever it hid had waited a long time. But not much longer. And the goat? It finally ate. The trapdoor didn't make a sound when Cole opened it the second time. Lantern in hand, rifle slung over his back, he stood over the dark mouth in the barn floor, every bone in his body stiff. The goat watched from a few paces off, no longer restless, but alert. The animal's quiet presence grounded him, absurd as it was. He took a deep breath, stepped onto the top rung of the ladder, and began to descend. The air grew colder with each rung, the damp wood groaning beneath his boots. The lantern's flickering light revealed earth walls, compact and rough as though carved by hand. He reached the bottom and turned slowly in place. It wasn't a root cellar. It wasn't any kind of cellar. A narrow room stretched out before him, barely 8 feet wide, longer than it was tall. The stone floor was uneven, patched with dirt. Against one wall, a cot with a rotted mattress. Chains bolted to the wall above it. On the opposite side, claw marks, deep gouges in the wall, 10 maybe 12. A message was scratched into the surface with what looked like a nail. He leaned in to read it, running his fingers gently across the jagged letters. "She's still alive." He stared. The lantern wavered in his grip. There was no signature, no date. Just 4 words, etched with shaking desperation. His gut twisted. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, wiped sweat from his brow, and stood there a moment longer, unable to speak or move. The ladder creaked above him. He turned, expecting movement, but the goat only shifted its head through the open trapdoor. Still watching. Back on the surface, the light of day seemed wrong, too bright, too indifferent. Cole sealed the door behind him, covered it with hay, and stood for a long time in the center of the barn, hands at his sides, heart racing. That room, it wasn't part of any blueprint. His father never mentioned it. And if it had been there all these years, someone had built it with purpose. And someone had used it. He saddled Dust again. This time he brought the rifle loaded. There was one man who came to mind, one ghost who'd always lingered around the edges of that terrible day. Jeb Marrow. Back in town, the usual sleepy rhythm pulsed through Gatlin. Dust snorted and stomped as they trotted past the dry fountain in the square. At the sheriff's office, Cole dismounted and tied the reins. Sheriff Mallory looked up from a stack of papers, surprised. "Twice in 1 week, Rollins? We celebrating something?" Cole stepped inside, didn't return the smirk. "Need to ask about someone. Jeb Marrow." Mallory's expression stiffened. "You're about 5 years too late to be worried about Jeb." "I'm not worried," Cole said. "I'm remembering." Mallory leaned back in his chair, boots thudding on the floor. "What brought this on?" "Found something buried on my property. Looks like a cell. Chains too." That got Mallory's attention. He lowered his feet. "You reportin' a crime or tryin' to chase ghosts?" "Cole, Saturday, I think my daughter was held there." Silence bloomed between them. Mallory took a deep breath. "Jeb Marrow did a short stint here. Bar fight turned bloody. Didn't do more than a year. Got out a month ago." "A month?" Cole's jaw tightened. "He ever mentioned June?" Mallory shook his head. "No. And I didn't think to ask." Cole nodded once, slow. "Where is he?" "He's been seen near Blackridge Canyon. Locals say he's holed up in one of those old outlaw camps. Got some boys with him. Not exactly the Sunday crowd. You send anyone after him? Not yet. Got no cause. He's free, Cole. You ride up there shootin', and you're the one breaking the law. Cole stood jaw set. If she was alive. She's not, Mallory said gentler now. You and I both know that. Cole didn't answer. Just turned and walked out into the street. The sun had begun its slow fall toward the hills, painting everything in dusty gold. He didn't stop to talk to anyone. He rode back fast, the horse's hooves kicking up stones behind them. At the barn he checked the trapdoor again. The room below was unchanged, but something had shifted in him. He went into the house, unlocked the drawer he hadn't touched in 5 years. Inside, a small wooden box. He opened it. June's drawings, folded notes, a necklace with a glass bead. He pulled out one sketch, crudely drawn, the lines faint with age. It showed the barn interior. And near the corner, an X. He blinked. The same spot the trapdoor had been. She knew. He sat down heavily in the wooden chair at the kitchen table. Every inch of him felt raw. The goat bleated once outside. He didn't move. Night came fast. The wind howled again, harder now, rattling the shutters. Something about it felt like warning. He poured 2 fingers of rye into a chipped glass, knocked it back, then stood and went to the shed. Pulled out an old saddlebag, stuffed it with bullets, jerky, water, rope. Then he strapped his revolver to his thigh. He'd ride at first light. Cole didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in the barn watching the goat, watching the trapdoor. Every sound made his hand twitch toward the rifle. He dreamed without sleeping, June in the field, hair blowing behind her as she laughed, then turning to scream, her voice muffled by wood and earth. The chain rattling. Scratches on a wall. When dawn cracked the sky open, Cole mounted Dust. The goat followed, trotting silently behind. They rode north, across hills speckled with boulders and dead trees. The trail to Blackridge Canyon was narrow, half-forgotten, overgrown with brambles. Buzzards circled high above. By midday he found the first sign, boot prints. More than one set heading uphill. Fresh. Then a horseshoe print. Then a campfire cold. He didn't dismount. Just pressed on. The canyon came into view like a scar, deep, red, and sunburnt. Craggy cliffs lined its sides. Somewhere below, in one of the abandoned cabins or mine shafts, Jeb was hiding. Cole dismounted finally, tied Dust to a tree, and crept forward, rifle in hand. The goat stayed behind, eyes wide. As he crouched behind a boulder, he spotted movement, 2 men at a fire, talking low. One had a scar across his cheek. The other was Jeb Marrow. Cole's breath caught. Jeb looked older but not weaker. His face had the smug calm of a man who'd done evil and gotten away with it. He leaned back on a log, chewing something, eyes scanning the tree line. Cole stayed hidden. He couldn't rush in, not yet. Jeb stood suddenly, said something to the other man and walked into a nearby shack. Cole waited, heart slamming against his ribs. When the second man turned to piss behind a tree, Cole moved. Quiet as wind. He pressed the barrel to the man's neck. Don't make a sound. The man froze. Where's Jeb? Cole asked. In the shack, the man whispered. Cole knocked him out cold with the butt of his rifle, stepped over the body and approached the shack. His boots cracked a dry branch. Inside, Jeb spun fast, gun drawn. Cole fired first. The bullet shattered the doorframe inches from Jeb's head. Jeb dropped behind a table, yelling, "Who the hell?" "You know who," Cole said, stepping in. Rifle raised. Jeb popped up, fired twice. One bullet grazed Cole's arm. He winced but didn't fall. He fired again, hit the lantern inside. Flames erupted. Smoke filled the room. Jeb kicked the back door open and ran. Cole followed. The chase wound down through the canyon, through brush and stone. Gunfire cracked through the still air. Then suddenly, silence. Cole stopped, rifle raised. A voice echoed behind a rock. "She ain't here, Rollins." Cole circled the boulder. "She was on my land. In a cell." "You did that? Tell me what happened." Jeb peeked over the edge, a revolver in his grip. "You really think she's still out there?" "I think she never left." Jeb smiled, wicked and sad. "You never even saw it, did you? You left her with me. You trusted me. I trusted a liar." "She cried for you," Jeb said. "Every damn day. But you were too drunk to hear it." Cole's hands trembled. He wanted to shoot. But he didn't. "You tell me where she is. Now." Jeb stared at him. Then something shifted in his eyes. "You'll never find the rest," he whispered. "There's more under that barn than you know. Then he lifted the revolver and pressed it under his chin. Cole lunged forward. Wait. Too late. The shot echoed like thunder, then faded into nothing. Cole stood over the body, chest heaving. Blood soaked the dry rocks. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He looked back toward the trail. More under the barn. More waiting. And the goat was still watching. Cole rode home in silence, the reins limp in his grip. Dust hooves clopped hollowly against the canyon stone, each step dragging the weight of what had just happened. Behind him, the sun bled out into the plains, casting the land in the long shadows of dusk. Jeb Merrill was dead. And yet, the silence left behind felt louder than the gunshot. The wind picked up as they crossed the ridge line. It whispered through the cottonwoods and tugged at his coat, like fingers reaching for answers. The goat had followed again, just a shape in the distance at first, but now it trotted alongside as if the animal understood, as if it had always known this would happen. Cole didn't speak on the way back, didn't stop, didn't eat. His shoulder ached from the graze, but the pain felt appropriate, just another scar to carry. The ranch greeted him with its usual hush, barn looming under the moonlight, house dark but waiting. He slid off dust and moved straight to the barn. No pause, no breath, just movement. He unhooked the pitchfork and tossed the hay aside again, uncovering the iron square. This time he didn't hesitate. He opened the trapdoor and climbed down, this time carrying more than a lantern. He had rope, chalk, a crowbar, a pocket knife, and a piece of charcoal. The room hadn't changed. Chains on the wall. Scratches. The message, she's still alive. Cole crouched near the base of the far wall and examined the floor carefully. He ran the crowbar along the seams between stone tiles. Near the corner, one tile gave a hollow clink. He pried it up. Beneath was dirt, loose and damp. He dug with his hands, nails scraping, breath ragged. The dirt gave way to something wrapped in canvas. He tore it open. Inside, a child's boot. Torn. Dirty. Familiar. His heart nearly gave out. It was June's. He sat back on his heels, vision swimming, clutching the tiny thing against his chest. It smelled like soil and mildew. But he remembered the day she lost it, running through the creek, yelling about invisible outlaws. They searched for hours. It had been a joke back then. Now it was proof. He laid it beside him gently, then dug further. Another bundle, this one smaller. A tin box. Inside, a drawing brittle with age. Stick figures. A tall man, a little girl, and a goat. Labeled in shaky, childish letters. Me. Daddy. Sheriff. Cole exhaled, slow and shaking. He looked again at the wall and traced the claw marks. They weren't random. They were grouped. Counted. 5, 10, 15. All the way up to 67 days. He turned toward the far corner, where the earth sloped downward slightly. A crack in the wall there, half hidden. He followed it, brushing away dirt. The crack wasn't natural. It was an outline. A second door. He set down the lantern and worked the crowbar between the gap. It resisted, groaning like something long asleep. Then it shifted. A cold breath spilled out, thicker than air, carrying a smell he didn't want to name. Rot. Mold. Something old. He pushed the door open. A tunnel yawned before him, barely tall enough to stand in. Dirt walls, roots hanging like hair from the ceiling. He picked up the lantern and stepped in. The goat bleated once above but didn't follow. The tunnel sloped down gradually, curving left, then right like a snake through the earth. Cole walked for what felt like hours but must have been minutes, each step slower, breath tight. The silence was complete, so thick it felt physical. Then he saw it. Another room. Small. Wood-reinforced walls like a mine shaft that gave up early. In the center, a child's chair. Broken. A piece of twine on the floor. A doll matted and half-burned. He sank to his knees. Rage and grief tore through him like fire through dry grass. Jeb had done this. This was no hiding place. This was a prison. A tomb. But there was something else. More markings, this time on the floor. Letters. Numbers. Scratched desperately. J12. Daddy, I hear you. He's lying. I'm still here. Cole's vision blurred. He pressed his palm against the floor and wept. Not loud, not theatrical, but the low, hopeless kind that came from too many days of silence. The kind that knew it was too late but had to keep going anyway. He looked around the space, tried to think. The messages weren't all dated. Some were layered. Some had been overwritten. But one caught his eye, newer than the rest, carved with a sharper object. This isn't the last room. He stood. The wall behind the chair had another crack. A faint one. He traced it, heart pounding. Another door. He hesitated, then set the lantern down and braced himself. He pushed. The wall groaned, dust fell, and then it gave way. A thin passage, more cave than tunnel. Cold air coiled out like a warning. He stepped through. This chamber was larger. The air was colder. And there, in the center, he saw something impossible. A journal. Open, placed on a wooden crate like it had been left for someone to find. The pages were filled with writing, June's handwriting. Pages and pages of thoughts, ramblings, descriptions. Fear, hope, and names. Cole turned pages slowly. Day 71. I heard him upstairs. The goat made noise. Daddy maybe? Day 89. I won't scream anymore. He says it's pointless. Day 102. If I write it down, I'll be real. The entries stopped around day 110. Nothing after that. No goodbyes. No ending. He gathered the journal carefully, tucked it into his coat. His hands were shaking again, not from cold, but from something deeper, hope and dread tangled together. Then he spotted the map. It had been scratched into the wooden crate's lid. A rough sketch of tunnels. Dead ends. A central circle marked with a cross. Another room. He stared at the cross, then back at the dirt wall ahead. She marked it, she believed it led somewhere. Maybe escape. Maybe deeper. He turned back. The journey out was longer. He checked every step, every tunnel. The wall seemed to lean closer. Dust choked the air. His lungs burned. His body screamed to stop. But he kept walking. At last, the ladder came into view. Light overhead. And the goat. He climbed out, trembling, skin gray with dust. The trapdoor slammed behind him and he collapsed against a beam, chest heaving. The goat nosed the side of his arm and let out a soft, almost human bleat. Cole reached into his coat and pulled out the journal. He flipped again through the pages. Her voice, so present, so detailed, still echoing in his ears. She knew I was there, he whispered. She heard me. He looked up toward the house. There was more. Jeb hadn't worked alone. He couldn't have. The construction, the tunnels, it was too much for one man. Cole had names now. Scrawled in June's journal. Men who visited. Voices she remembered. Descriptions. He needed to know who else had stood above that floor. Who else had smiled at him in town while she screamed underground. The trapdoor had given him pieces. But the town Gatlin held the rest. And Cole Rollins was done waiting. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, the last rays painting the barn in blood-red hues, Cole gathered his saddlebag, packed the journal, and walked into the house with purpose. He didn't lock the barn. The goat stayed behind, staring at the trapdoor. Watching. Waiting. Cole stood in the center of Gatlin's dusty main street just after dawn, the sun casting long, sharp lines across the weathered wood facades and creaking signs. His silhouette stretched like a rifle's barrel across the dirt. The town hadn't changed. Same two-bit saloon with its flickering lanterns. Same general store with cracked glass. Same rusted jailhouse with a fading star nailed above the door. But Cole had changed, and Gatlin was about to learn it. He stepped into the sheriff's office first. Not because he thought help would be found there, but because he had to know. Sheriff Holt looked up from behind his desk, half asleep, mustache damp from coffee, eyes red-rimmed from nights of drinking more than justice. "Well, I'll be," Holt muttered. "Back from the grave, are ya, Rollins?" Cole didn't smile. Didn't nod. He laid the journal down between them, the pages flopping open on their own as if the book knew where to go. Holt leaned in, scowling. "What's this?" "Evidence," Cole said, his voice like a flint struck against steel. "You'll recognize the names." The sheriff thumbed through it, frown deepening. Then a pause. His eyes flicked up. "You sure this ain't creative fiction?" Cole didn't blink. "Read the last 5 entries." Holt did. Slowly. With each line, the color drained from his face. "She was here. Under my own land. 67 days. Then deeper. Jeb kept her alive. Hurt her. Made her think she was dead to me. And then, others came. Recognize the name Harrelson?" The sheriff swallowed hard. "Mayor's cousin. He's been gone a while. Folks said he took a job up north." "He didn't. He was down there." "Jesus, Rollins," Holt stood up, half stumbling backward. "You telling me Jeb was running some kind of—" "I'm not telling you," Cole cut in. "She did. In that journal. There's more than one set of tracks leading to that hatch. Jeb's ranch was a front for something worse. You gonna do something, Sheriff? Or you gonna pour another cup of cowardice?" Holt looked like a man torn between 2 cliffs, justice and survival. "You can't just barge into town with this and expect—" "I'm not asking," Cole said. And then he turned and walked out. By the time the sun had fully risen, Cole had hit every door that mattered. Mayor Gaines, Doc Leary, even Preacher Thomason. He showed them all the journal. Every page. Every scar etched in a child's shaky hand. Some were shocked. Others pretended. And some went pale. Those were the ones he marked. By nightfall, the town buzzed like a kicked hornet's nest. Doors slammed faster. Conversation stopped when Cole passed. Guns got cleaned. But no one dared confront him. Not yet. Then the goat came back. Cole spotted it standing outside the saloon. Just standing there. Watching. He knelt beside it. You still hungry? The goat didn't move. Cole nodded. So am I. He returned to the ranch at midnight. He'd prepared for this, stocked supplies, cleaned his rifles, memorized the map from the journal. But when he entered the barn, something was different. The trapdoor was open. He froze. Slowly approached. The lantern still hung beside the hatch. Untouched. He climbed down. And found footprints. Fresh ones. Boot tracks in the dust, disturbed hay, new scratches on the walls. The air was wrong, too still. Like breath held for too long. He followed the tracks into the tunnel. His heart didn't race, it burned. He wasn't scared now. He was fury wrapped in flesh, carved into bone. Voices echoed ahead. Not loud, but not hiding. He doused his lantern and moved forward in the dark, every step calculated, hand on the revolver at his side. He crept into the main chamber, the one with the journal, the child's chair, the crate. And he saw them. 3 men. Flashlights. One with a shovel. Another with a pistol. All standing around the final wall, the one June had marked with a cross. What if it's still sealed? One muttered. She said there's more, another whispered. Deeper room. The one they never finished. And what if he comes back? The third asked. Too late. Cole stepped into the light. They froze. Evening, boys, he said. Guns drew. Cole fired first. 2 shots. One into the leg of the man with the shovel, the other striking the pistol out of the second's hand. The third tried to run. Cole tackled him before he reached the tunnel. Fist met jaw. Dirt flew. When it ended, only Cole was standing. He tied them. Left them moaning in the corner. Then he turned to the wall. The cross glared back at him. He pressed his palm to the center. The dirt crumbled. Behind it, another door. Wooden. Splintered with age. He kicked it open. And found her. Not a ghost. Not a corpse. June. Alive. Eyes wide. Thin. Pale. Hands chained. But alive. She blinked against the sudden light. Then whispered, Daddy? Cole dropped everything. Ran. He fell to his knees and held her so tightly the world stopped spinning. Her ribs jutted out like branches. Her face was hollowed, but her eyes, those were still June's. She wept. He wept. Words poured out between sobs and silence. I thought you forgot, she said. Never, he whispered. Never once. He broke the chains. Carried her out. Past the moaning men. Through the tunnels. Up the ladder. The goat waited above. When they emerged into the starlight, June gasped. Her hand reached skyward, trembling as if touching the night made it real. They sat in the hay, breathless. Silent. Until she said, he wasn't alone. There were more. They used to come. Watch. Laugh. I know, Cole said. And they're going to answer for it. She leaned into him. Can we go home now? We are home, he said. But his eyes stayed on the horizon. Because home wasn't safe yet. The next day, Cole rode into town again. This time with June behind him and a notebook full of names. And this time, Gatlin couldn't ignore him. The townsfolk gathered like sheep under a storm. Faces masked in false concern. Cole threw the notebook at the sheriff's feet. She lived, he said, voice a thunderclap. And she remembered everything. Gasp. Murmurs. Panic. The mayor stepped forward. Now hold on, Rollins, there's no need. No need. Cole roared. You knew. You looked me in the eye when I searched for her and told me she was dead. You let Jeb walk free. People turned. Eyes narrowed. Secrets unraveled. June stepped forward. Thin but unshaken. She pointed at the preacher. He was there. A gasp. She pointed again. And him. Panic. Shouts. It was over. That night, fires burned. Justice wasn't handed down by the law. It came in whispers, torches, and ropes. Gatlin would never speak of that night again. But they remembered. Cole and June left the next morning. Not to run, but to heal. They rode east toward the sun, toward lands untouched by Gatlin's rot. She didn't speak much at first. He didn't press. But every now and then she'd laugh. Or sing. Or tell him about the goat that never left. He listened. The trapdoor stayed open back at the ranch, not as a threat, but as a reminder of darkness faced, of light reclaimed, and of the goat who had always known the way out.